Right, in worksheet 2 there's a task 5, and task 5 requires you to use this little code fragment to bring to life and have a go and test all the other JavaScript code that we played in this tutorial. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to use Visual Studio. So on my laptop, I've got all programs. Somewhere in here, I'll have Visual Studio 2012 Express. In the labs, you have the full edition. So I'm going to bring worksheet 2, task 5 to life in Visual Studio. I've booted up Visual Studio. I'm going to create a new website. I'm going to go to File, New Website. Empty website's fine. I'm going to create a subdirectory to put it all in on the root of the disk I'm going to be using. So I'm going to call this WRK2. I'll press OK. Just change the save the changes. I now have a website, WRK2, available in the Solution Explorer. If I right-hand mouse click and I want to peek inside Windows Explorer, there it is. There's the subdirectory. Here's the empty website. To add files, I'm going to right-hand mouse click the root of the website. I'm going to add a new item. The item I'm going to add is a HTML5. The HTML5 I'm going to call test.html. And there I have my test HTML5 in the source view and in a design view. I'm actually going to make use of the code that was part of the first task in worksheet 2. I'm going to copy it, in this particular case, and paste it into this window. And I want to point out something. When you do copy and paste out of the documents I give you, some of the characters don't get transferred across appropriately. You've noticed that the speech marks are just wrong. So what I'm going to do is remove the errors and fix them. So be careful with your cutting and pasting. So here's my tidied up and repaired HTML. In the final task of worksheet 2, I ask you to include this script framework. Copy that across, put it in the head. This little bit of script here is going to provide like a bootstrap, a framework for the code. We're going to talk about this later on. But basically this line detects that the browser window has loaded the document. In this case, our HTML file. When it detects that the browser window has loaded our document, it's going to do this. Now, do this is an object which needs to be defined somewhere else in the JavaScript. Reassuringly, here I have an object that happens to be an executable one, a function. This will become clear again on Wednesday. That's actually going to come to life as soon as the browser window is loaded. So this particular function will come to life when required. In this particular case, when the browser window is loaded. This function is basically just a container, and inside that container we can write any JavaScript we want. So I'm going to write some JavaScript. I'm going to ask it to alert us a message, and it's going to be a very simple one. Hello world. So let's test out a little bit of JavaScript. I'm going to right hand mouse click the file, go to browse with. Yes, I want to change the save the changes. Go to Firefox and press browse. And there we have our little button that says hello world. I'm going to view this in Firebug, reload, see if I can see my JavaScript. There it is. Just to demonstrate, I'm put a breakpoint, reload the page again. When it reloads, it's detected that the window has been loaded. It's going to call the do this function. There's the do this function. Inside the do this function, I have a single line that's going to say alert hello world. Walk through that line. What a shocker, it says hello world. So what I require you to do to satisfy the rest of the tutorial is grab hold of each of these examples. Here's another one. So now I have test HTML sitting nicely inside my website. Test HTML has a small snippet of HTML sitting there waiting to manipulate it, and it also has a blob of JavaScript. This blob of JavaScript is going to provide a framework to help us test other lines of code. So here I have the document.write straight out of the worksheet. What I want to do is find out what it does, so I've cut and pasted it inside the do this function. I right hand mouse click the file, I browse with, save those changes, browse it with Firefox. What it's now done is wrote into the document this HTML stream. That HTML stream has effectively replaced the HTML stream that we started with. That's the power of JavaScript. Close the browser down, go back to the worksheet. Another thing I asked you to have a look at was figure out what this snippet of code would do. So let's paste that into here. Let's run it, let's figure it out, and then there's comment our code. So what I now need to do is right hand mouse click again, browse with, save it of course because I've made some changes, Firefox, browse, and it's actually sent via an alert the message, here is some text in div 2. So how is it able to do that? Well, let's have a look inside the code to start off with. Well, the first thing it's done is it's dived inside the HTML document. It's used the getElementById method. I've passed it an argument, a parameter of p3. So it's wandered its way down the document object model till it found an element that had an ID of p3. There's one. It's grabbed hold of the inner HTML property of that element, and there's the inner HTML property of that element, and it's taken that result and alerted it to the screen. So what have we done? In summary, I've shown you how to create a website in Visual Studio, how to add items, in particular how to add HTML pages. We've inserted some JavaScript code out of the worksheet into the HTML pages. We've ran and tested the code. What I'd like you to now is follow what I've done, have a go, play with the JavaScript, experiment.